Today is Friday, April 18th, 2025, and welcome to the Chapter 49 podcast. Chapter 49 represents most IRS employees in the state of Indiana. My name is Larry Lannon. I am a volunteer in communications with Chapter 49 and a retiree. And now let's welcome back our Chapter 49 president, Duncan Giles.
Thanks, Larry. It's always good to be here.
Well, I want to say one thing here at the very top. Normally, I wanted to, when you study journalism, I tell you not to bury the lead. Well, we're going to bury the lead today. I would say that looking at our statistics, some people will watch or listen to our podcast for a while and then dump out of it, which is your choice. I mean, your time is valuable. We understand that. However, on this podcast, we have a very important announcement to make about the podcast that I think you will want to know in our final comments at the end. So I would strongly suggest you do stay with us to the very end of this podcast episode. With that said, last time, Duncan, I like to refer to the alphabet soup that we use these days at IRS, the DRP, the VERA, the VSIP. And unfortunately, we're adding another one, the RIF. And most people know what a RIF is, unfortunately. DRP, VERA, and VSIP, we have to kind of remind people what these all mean because sadly, as this is discussed in the media and is discussed internally, sometimes people get them confused. We did this last week. Might be worth our while to go into this once again in this podcast. Let's talk about DRP, VERA, VSIP, RIF, and what each individual part of that means and how they kind of work together in another way.
Yeah, the DRP, Larry, is the program where they are saying, okay, we will let you go ahead and leave the service. We will pay you through the end of the fiscal year, the end of September. If you're selected, if you put in and are allowed to do this, so you would get basically your regular pay through September, and you'd be on admin leave for anywhere from 4 to, a little bit less than 4 to 6 months. You've got VERA, which is Voluntary Early Retirement Authority, and that basically would allow anybody who is at least age 50 and has 20 years or any age with 25 years to go ahead and retire on an annuity now versus having to wait until their minimum retirement age. VSIP is the voluntary severance incentive payment, and that is based on what your severance is up to a maximum of $25,000 before taxes. And then you've got RIF, which is the reduction in force. And that's what, after all these programs come through, that's what we're looking at facing next.
Yeah, and I think the important thing that you and I have talked about, and I think something you have been doing for several weeks now, talking to individual employees who are members of Chapter 49 and others who have choices to make. And the choice is you have to make a decision on these various options. And I know you try to stay away from recommending anything in particular for these employees. But your job, and I think the way you see it, and I think you do it very well, is listening to one's individual situation, work-wise and personal too. It all is together. And then you say, okay, here are your options, and this is what happens if you choose this option. This is what happens if you choose the other option. And we're looking at people making decisions that will impact the rest of their lives. So this is a very big decision to make. So I would ask you just what are some of the common questions, situations that you have been hearing from the people who are talking to you, and maybe just a few tips on how you evaluate that option or set of options you have and how you try to sort that out into your own personal situation.
Yeah, it's very individualistic. Everybody's situation, as you said, is different. And first off, if people, and we've already been hearing this, and I've heard it Tuesday through earlier, and you know, up to today about people saying, well, I wasn't here Monday, or can I still get in on Vera or VISIP or DRP? And it's like, no, it's closed. It's closed. So if you didn't volunteer for any of them, you're not going to be able to get it. And what you do is what I've done, and I've done this for, members of Chapter 49, folks who aren't members, because I want to make sure everybody's got this information. Um, Managers, I've had a couple of executives contact me because everybody's trying to figure out what's best, and so I just lay it out. I'll figure out, okay, what's your age? How many years have you been here? What are you looking to do? Okay, you can stay. You can, you qualify for Vera or you don't. This is what you'd be looking at. The VISIP versus severance pay. If you do get RIFT, what would be better for a particular individual? Those types of things. And it goes so far as to giving people a ballpark of what their annuities might be. Just going in and doing some quick calculations saying this is a very rough one, but this is approximately what you'd be looking at before taxes, before insurance, things of that nature. Just like you say, to give people as much information as possible when you're talking about life decisions. And that's what these basically are huge life decisions for each individual and their families.
Last time we had a podcast, my final comment related to something happening at the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, where NTU does represent those people, about how they had taken away, telework and had to bring it back. Otherwise, they were going to lose all their skilled employees and people with the background to do things like evaluating new drugs coming onto the market. Well, something like that is happening at IRS. LBNI is the section of IRS dealing with the largest cases, the biggest cases, the biggest corporations, more complex issues our examination division or audit people have to deal with. And we have very well-educated and advanced revenue agents staffing that. Well, we've been seeing people who have been applying for this DRP, this delayed program where you're paid till the end of September. So now we're hearing that in SBSE, the Small Business Self-Employed Division, people are being granted that DRP if they want to have it. But revenue agents and LB&I who are applying for this are often getting a different response. Talk about that.
Yeah, this is something that came up just late yesterday. And first, I want to take a step back. The original goal from what we've been seeing, and the goal, it's almost like the goalposts keep moving all the time. But what we've been hearing most consistently is that originally at its peak, and we haven't been at our peak for quite a while, but at its peak, the IRS had around 102,000 employees. They want to get it down to somewhere between 60 to 70, which is way too few, but that's a whole different discussion. So how do you get down to that? And we heard how many, about 4,000 plus took DRP 1.0. So for DRP 2, between DRP 2 and Vera, either combined or separate, apparently about over 22,000 employees, from what we're hearing, took this, which would be a massive number. Another 2,300 took VISIP. So you're talking 2,500 right there. So you're talking a 25% swath plus the earlier. So you're already talking 30%. Well, apparently, and I've gotten this from a couple of different sources, the folks at HCO were a little bit stunned that everybody wanted to take these DRPs and VISIPs and things, Veras and things of that nature. Why they're stunned, I have no idea. If executives are thinking that we really don't understand why people are taking this number, they need to talk to employees who are basically scared bleepless and wanting to to have some sort of certainty about their future, and there is none right now. And as we've talked about before, this is part of parts of the administration have said, we want to make sure that federal employees feel horrible. We want to make sure that they, feel awful when they're coming in and make it as tough as possible. They want federal employees to leave. So while they would be surprised at these numbers, I don't know. And then you get to, okay, how will the IRS function about, with losing all these? Well, apparently they had quite a few folks, like I said, over 22,000 taking this, actually putting in for the DRP. Now, they haven't signed contracts, so we don't know what the actual final number will be because it's not official until they sign an agreement. But they had quite a few from LBNI, understandably so. People, again, looking at their future saying, I don't know what it's going to hold. We want to be, out of here. And so we were hearing a number around 1,700 in LBNI were taking it. Late yesterday, the commissioner of LBNI came out with a message to all LBNI revenue agents saying that you are now deemed mission critical. They weren't in DRP 1, but they are now in DRP 2. You're deemed mission critical, so you are not able to take DRP or VERA or VISA. You're not going to be allowed to participate in these because we need you. Now, it's mind-blowing, and the LBNI folks that I talked to were just like, what the heck is going on? And when they came, I had a couple of great LBNI agents come over and talk to me about this late yesterday afternoon, and that was the first I'd heard of it. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. All we're hearing is we want to get rid of you, want to get rid of you. Somebody somewhere must have said, hey, we're going to need these employees. So for what they've done right now, and this includes, and this one really blew my mind, probationary LBNI revenue agents who've basically been told, okay, you're let go. Okay, the court says we have to have you come back. Okay, we're going to put you on admin leave. Then we're going to have your report. No, the Supreme Court says we don't have to, so now we're not going to. Now they've been sent messages saying you, as a probationary employee, are also deemed to be mission critical in LBNI as a revenue agent. So we're going to be bringing you back to the office and issuing you the equipment, giving you the badge, the whole 9 yards to be able to do your work. So this is just mind-blowing how we're doing this. We have not heard this from SBSE, Taxpayer Services, any other division like this. But for LBNI, apparently, they have been deemed mission critical. And again, I think everybody is mission critical, but that's neither here nor there right now. We need everybody we can get. So as it stands right now, the interesting question, when risks do come, and they will probably still be coming eventually, we don't know when. And if you've heard rumors it's going to be on this date, it's exactly this date, and we know exactly this. They're still reworking it. They have to, based on the number of people who take the DRP, because you have to sign the agreement. So those numbers are always going to be constantly churning. So it's still going to be a while before they start doing the RIFs, in my estimation, and from what I'm hearing. But we don't know that these people who are deemed mission critical yesterday will be protected from RIFs when it comes down. I would assume so. If they aren't, that gets them a hell of a case in front of the Merit System Protection Board. We're saying, okay, if I was mission critical, a month ago, why am I not mission critical today? And why are you riffing me? So, I mean, there are a whole bunch of things going on here that nobody's got a good grip on. National IRS at headquarters is not really talking to National NTEU about this. I suspect because they don't have that much information about it. So we're just trying to figure out what's happening, what's going on. And, everybody is in a state of confusion right now. We have been for, a couple of months now. But I mean, it's really at this point, we're trying to find logic, and we're not, this is logical. To keep these folks in LBNI, it is logical. We should be keeping folks in SBSE and taxpayer services as well, and every other function. But for right now, there's that ray of hope that they've looked at LBNI and said, okay, we are going to keep them. They are mission critical. So that's where it stands as of the recording of this podcast.
Which is 10 a.m. on the 18th of April, Eastern
Yeah,
Time, just so you know. By the way, Duncan, you ever seen videos taken of people watching a tennis match where they look this way, look that way, look this way? That's the way these employees must feel right now.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's, they have no idea which way is up. What do we do? How do we plan our future? It's almost impossible to do at this point. And I can't tell you how much National NTU, my brethren across the country, and every NTU chapter, managers, second level managers, and most executives also feeling their pain because they have no control over this process. They know it's not right. They know it's inhumane, for lack of a better term, but it's happening, and we've got to try and make the best of it that we can while we are going and doing, filing what National NTU is filing what they need to do to try and stop this and make sure it's done both legally correct and contractually correct, which it has not been.
Well, yeah, and we've got tons of actions pending right now. And as we mentioned before, people go, "Why don't you go to a court now and get it stopped?" Well, courts demand that we use internal process first, and that sadly takes time. It's not a good thing, but it's what we have to do. That's what the law dictates we do. And even with we when we think the other side is not following the law, guess what? We're going to follow the law because we think the law is on our side. Speaking of the law and contracts, found it interesting that there were people on social media the other day saying not only is IRS and other agencies saying that they're no longer withholding union dues, as has been the case forever, but they're refunding some of the union dues that have already been withheld from people's pay. NTE was in court right now trying to get this fixed as quickly as possible. So I know a lot of people are confused by the fact that some of their union dues have been returned to them, something that's been which is unprecedented,
Mm-hmm.
certainly in the federal sector. So just explain why that happened as best we understand it and where all this stands now.
Yeah, like you said, as best we understand it, as best we can figure, because again, the communication from IRS to National NTU has been very minimal on this and most other topics. Is the based on the executive orders that we had gotten, they said we are not going to withhold any any dues from the paychecks, which is something that the executive order said we don't agree with it. We've gone to court about it, and Doreen Greenwald, our national president, has been extremely clear in saying that we are going to make sure that everybody is still a member, whether they're having their dues withheld or not. So right now, don't worry about this. You're still members. It's happening. Well, then the IRS, apparently from the pay period before, decided to withhold everybody's dues. And I can't tell you how many calls and emails I was getting, our vice president and chief steward Gail Groves was getting, about why am I getting this extra money in my paycheck or in deposited into my bank? And it's because of the fact that IRS, for the pay period before they stopped withholding dues, decided to refund those dues. So therefore, we don't know what's happening, why it's going on, but we're going to be hearing, we're hopefully hearing a court decision in sometime next week. We've presented to the judge, we've briefed it out. IRS has given their response, so we're hoping that we can start getting some semblance of order and common sense and go back to the way it was. If not, NTU will have a plan ready on how to go forward with this, and we'll be communicating that with the members as well. But appreciate everybody that's saying, "Hey, look, I'm a member. I'm in this fight with you. What do we need to do? Do we donate to NTU or anything of that nature?" No, you can't donate your dues that are being refunded back to you. We so appreciate the thought. I mean, from national office on down to every chapter, we really appreciate those people that are saying things like that. But just hold on to your money. You're good. We're going to be working through this, and we will let you know as soon as we know something on how this is going to move forward.
Sort of dovetails something that you want to talk about, and you talked about at length in our last podcast. I'm sure you continue to hear this complaints. Well, the IRS is doing all this to us, and it could be other agencies as well. People from other agencies are
Mhm.
watching or listening. The government is doing this to us, and NTEU just isn't doing anything. Now, that may be the feeling people have with all the attacks, but we are seeing multiple attacks like no one's ever seen. And that's part of the problem. When you have incoming from all different directions, you have to defend yourself and fight back in all different directions. NTU is doing that. So explain when people bring up to you, hey, why isn't NTU doing anything? Once again, let's hear your response to that.
Yeah, this is one of those things where it really gets to me because of the fact that, I hear, well, NTU is letting this happen. No, no, we're not. NTU isn't doing anything. Au contraire, we certainly are. And, I really love the stuff that National NTU is sending out to folks, to the members, to let them know all the stuff that we are doing. Where the problem is happening is people want instant gratification. They want it stopped right now. We don't want return to office. We want to go back to telework right now. We want to get our reasonable accommodations settled right now. We want this done immediately. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. What's happening is the administration, including OPM, Treasury, are basically saying, we are going to put you through every single legal hoop we have. We are going to try and delay it as long as possible. And as you alluded to earlier, we're going to be doing things the legal and correct way. Now, do we think that we are going to be prevailing? Yes, we do. There's so many cases that are going to be cited that this is not correct. Saying that NTU, we're going to decertify unions because these agencies are all national security. Okay, the IRS hasn't been national security in its entire existence, and it just becomes that now. Good luck making that case in court. But again, it's dragging things out. It's making things take longer. And before we have to file institutional grievances. Those have to be heard. Then we have to wait for a response. Then if we get a response from the IRS basically saying, no, we don't agree with you, then we have to go through whatever process needs to go through there, whether it's Merit System Protection Board or whether it's the federal courts. And if you do that, let's say you go to the court, then you're going to have, if you win in there, the government's probably going to appeal. And until all these things work their way through, we're not able to say, okay, boom, everybody go back and do what you want to do and what you're legally entitled to do and what you're contractually entitled to do. We have to wait until we get these decisions. And it sucks and it's horrible, but it's the legal system that we have here in the United States, and we fervently want, believe, and hope it will work as it should, and these rights will be restored. But unfortunately, it's not going to be soon. So, for people who say NTU is not doing anything, I can't tell you how far from the truth that actually is. And for those people who are saying that, they obviously either aren't members, so they're got issue right there because they're not getting information or not reading the information that's coming out from National NTU or that we put on our Facebook page or that we talk about here in the podcast. We're telling you all that NTU is doing and will continue to do to fight for the rights of the federal employees who represent. And it's not just NTU, it's every federal government union that is out there. We're all fighting for this, and private sector unions are seeing this because they're saying if they can do this to federal government unions, they'll be coming for us next. So it's in everybody's interest, and everybody is doing what they can on this, but it is not a fast process, but it's a process we do believe we will prevail.
Well, I think the coalition that has formed of government unions, and we don't always agree with each other, we government unions, but we are definitely united on this. Uh, there are nonprofit groups that are think like us who have been helping us in court and other ways, funding. And of course, I found it quite interesting that so many private sector unions are now in with us and in this fight with us because they see this in their long-term interest as well. One thing that IRS has just recently said, I just saw this in some of the government employee press the other day, that the administration has now said that they think, and the IRS has said that they think hiring that has been frozen for a while and probably will remain frozen for several months to come. And the other part of this, which can impact people at IRS and other agencies, there's been talk of closing postal duty, of moving them. At least for now, that's all frozen as well, is it not?
Yeah, right now it's a state of confusion. We do know that the administration has said without specific permission, there's no hiring until July. I think the IRS is a special case and we're indefinite on no hiring, but that could be changed anytime. Then people are talking about, okay, I want to go from my POD here, POD X to POD Y because it's closer to my home. Right now, the IRS is saying nobody can move their PODs, period, end of story. You might be able to eventually and hopefully pretty soon move within your post of duty to a different seat if there's one open that's closer to your group or your manager, something of that nature. We're hoping that frees up fairly soon. But to be able to move somebody from one POD to another, even with something like a reasonable accommodation, that's not happening anytime soon. That's frozen. And that goes along with some of the stuff that keeps coming out. You know, they want to eliminate 410s. They basically are saying we're going to eliminate 410s. We're going to eliminate, you know, there's talk, and I've heard rumors that they want to eliminate this, eliminate that. You know, we're doing, as we said previously, we're doing everything we can in court. This is the POD stuff is another one that we're trying to work through. And then you have the rumors, okay, is there going to be POD closures? We're hearing that they're closing this call site or they're closing submission processing here or they're going to close this POD. We have no idea what's going on. I don't think they know what's going on. I would assume that, you know, and I've talked to folks in our facilities area, and so far I've not seen anything, and I can only speak for locally here in Indiana, any big shakes or moves or anything like that at this particular moment. Could that change over the weekend? Heck yes, it can, because some of this stuff does. But as of right now, we're not seeing that. But I've heard rumors from other chapters that they're hearing that sites may close, sites may move. Who knows what's going to happen? But we're staying on top of all of this, and National NTU is doing everything they need to do to make sure that everything is done legally and contractually, and we'll continue to file on everything that we need to. You know, the part of what I think the administration's mindset is we're going to wear employees unions out. We're going to just financially try and drain them. We're going to do that. We're ready for the fight. We're here for the fight. They're going to be continuing the fight. So don't feel that NTU is going to be going away, or any of the other federal government unions are going to be going away anytime soon, because we're not. We're in here to make sure that employees are protected.
Well, Duncan, it's time for maybe one of the most important final comments we've had in the history of this podcast. So, what is your final comment today?
I don't know if it's that momentous or not.
I think it is.
There has been a lot of speculation about what I'm going to be doing. You know, people have been asking me, you know, with all this stuff that's going on. And I do want to let people know now that as of the middle of May, I will be resigning as NTU Chapter 49 president, and basically going on my way. I will be, you know, no longer doing work for the service. I will no longer be chapter president. Some people, you know, want to be retiree chapter presidents. That's not me. You know, my awesome wife, Kim, and I have had discussions about, you know, when to leave since for probably about a year now, close to a year. You know, because I originally said I was going to stay to the end of my term. But at this point, it was just best for me to go ahead, take advantage of some opportunities, and go ahead and move on. Um, Per our bylaws, our vice president and chief steward, Gail Groves, will be taking over for the rest of the remaining term, which will be through the end of September of next year. Um, and I just want to thank each and every one of the folks that I've interacted with, especially our members in Chapter 49, but NTU National Office, my fellow chapter presidents across the country. management officials, from frontline managers to executives who've wanted to work on issues and are seriously trying to do things. I've been a chapter president for over 23 years. I've been doing full time union work for over a quarter century, and this is a pretty it's momentous for myself and for Kim for me to walk off into the sunset. But I just feel it's the right time for me to do this, and it doesn't lessen my interest in fighting for NTU or fighting for federal employees, anything of that nature. I will always be a member of NTU, wholeheartedly believe in everything that's being done. We have an awesome national office staff led by our national president, Doreen Greenwald. Absolutely fantastic. And they're going to do everything they can and should be doing for those employees. But at this point, it's just time for me to move on.
And I will have a lot more to say about your tenure as president in a future podcast, but I'd like to just explain to people what this means for the future of this podcast, this Chapter 49 podcast, because I think it's important to think back to the world we knew in March and April of 2020. Federal employees were mostly on weather and safety leave. That because COVID-19 was spreading and health authorities were recommending people stay home so there would not be a spread of the virus, which was deadly for an awful lot of people. Now, I remember at that time, I talked to you, Duncan, about starting a podcast series to better communicate with everyone. We can send out written things, and then they have their place. They certainly do. But being able to sit down and explain things in plain language, I think there's really no replacement for that. I think a lot of people felt disengaged sitting at home, not being a part of their job. They're getting paid, but they're not really feeling a part of the workforce or in our case, the IRS or even our union also. So I credit you with having the courage to try something new. We had no idea whether this would succeed or if we were going to fall on our faces. And we very well could have. Who knows? Unless you try it, you just don't know. It turns out we did have the chemistry to do this. We have 5 years of doing this podcast. So it's going to be hard to call it quits, but we will eventually do that. We have a few episodes left. We tentatively plan to record and post our final Chapter 49 podcast on Thursday, May the 8th, to accommodate my schedule and Duncan wrapping things up in the middle of May as chapter president, as an employee. So to you at this point, I'll have a lot more to say in the future, but today with this announcement, I just want to thank you, Duncan, for having the foresight and the courage to try something new. I think we can call it a success. We lasted 5 years and nobody's canceled us yet. So we will,
Despite some people's best efforts.
and some people have tried, yes, and say, why are you doing this? Could you do something different? Or what in the world are you doing? And we haven't always, how should I put this, made people happy with this podcast, but we called it as we saw it. And that's what we intended to do from the very beginning. And we've got a few episodes left. May 8th will be the final one, so I wanted to give you a heads up on that. So Duncan, yeah, thanks for your service. A lot more we're going to say about that in the future. I'll have a lot to say about that in the future, as will many other people. But at least for today, for today's podcast, for April 18th of 2025, thank you again, Duncan, for being a part of it. And thanks to all of you watching and listening. We appreciate your taking some of your valuable time and sharing it with us. So until we speak again, please be safe and be kind.